lastly, we're going to be jumping into, we were talking about PlayStation a little bit. Dom, what's your topic for us?
So I think it was 2 weeks ago now, on PS I Love You, which of course I listen to every week. Colin Moriarty says, Moriarty gives a quick bit on, yeah, I bet Sony really regrets buying Gaikai or however you say it, and doing the whole PS Now thing. That was a huge mistake. That never worked out. And I couldn't disagree more with it. So I want to see what you guys think, because PS Now, right? I'll say it straight up, kind of sucks. Not enough people have internet good enough to truly take advantage of it. It's kind of overpriced, and it's only PS3 games. And I don't know if there's PS2 games or anything older on there.
It's still just PS3. They originally talked about doing the entire library, but
right. So right now, it's not good. Yeah, it obviously hasn't paid off right now. So
sure,
I think
for the billions of dollars that they spent on that fucking company.
Exactly. And I don't think when they bought it that this was their only plan. I just don't think that we're going to use it as an alternative for backwards compatibility and only old games will be on. I don't think that's what they're going. I don't think that was their original intent as the end goal. I think there's still more coming in the vein of basically a Netflix-esque service where you don't need a console. You just need the controller and, a smart TV, or they could even put an app on Roku's and whatever it might be. Right, exactly. Something inexpensive. And then basically you can still rent games individually, how it is on PS Now right now, where for 7 days you can rent something for $3 or whatever it is. Or you can, subscribe to different tiers of a service. The number I threw out when we were talking about it the other day was, maybe it's $100 a month, but you get access to every single...
Right? No, you said a month.
A month.
My bad,
so,
my bad.
But just it sounds crazy, it sounds expensive, but when you do the math, it might be a bargain. So say $100 a month got you full access to every game that came out. Like every brand new game, you just got it. Like you get everything that's on the platform,
but
you just can play it.
I don't think that's a logistical way to do it. I think if anything, they would do like $20 a month, and you can have a game like downloaded or streamed at a time. You know?
So that's what the next piece was. There would definitely be tiers. Like that would be the top tier, right? Where you're just you have tons of time and you love to play everything. Like you're gonna buy that. But then there would be two tiers under that of $50 a month, where you get one brand new game or something, and a couple smaller ones, and then even a lower tier. And then, of course, still there's like the individual rentals you could do if you're really budget conscious. I just think, streaming has taken over everywhere else. Granted, the legacy platform still exists. People still buy CDs. They still exist, and people still buy Blu-rays. We're not streaming everything, but it's huge now. We stream the majority of people stream music off Apple Music or Spotify, and majority of people nowadays, at least millennials, use Netflix or Amazon Prime Video, and those sorts of things. So I don't see a reason, once the technical limitations are surpassed, that gaming can't follow the same suit, because it could be just a different value proposition where you're not buying that $400 box anymore, but you're just subscribing to a service. And I think that's where they're eventually going with it. Long ways off before anything like that would ever be realized. I think 15 years maybe before what I just described could ever be solidified and successful. But
I don't think it's that long. I'd say 5 years.
I was thinking 10 to 15, somewhere in that range. Just because, like me,
internet
for example,
speeds, man.
Yeah, I get crap.
But it's not as bad as you think. I have a solid internet speed. I actually have a pretty great internet speed with Comcast, but I've never had. I really only did like the free trials. I never actually subscribed, but I never had any issues streaming. And I played through all of God of War Ascension, beat that whole game, and it was straight.
I tried the free trial, and I tried to play BioShock Infinite, and I couldn't even. It was like 2 frames a second. So, and I have the best internet I can get in my area, like the best. And it's like $40 a month, and I'm like, can I pay for more? And they're like, no, that's it.
So I have quite a bit to say on this topic. So for me, the way I look at PlayStation Now is to me is Microsoft's launch conference for Xbox One, where they announced all of these features, which me personally, I understood and I was okay with because I understood what they were going for. But to the public market, it was something that could have came 5 to 10 years from now, right? They want to do all of this stuff that people just weren't ready for. And I think that's what PlayStation Now is. I think it's something, like you said, that could be 10 years off, 15 years off. That's a great idea for the future. The worst part here is Microsoft and PlayStation took two branches. PlayStation took the PlayStation Now route. Microsoft took the backwards compatibility route. And gamers told you who won that, right? People love the backwards compatibility.
That was a forced thing. I'm sure PlayStation would have done backwards compatibility if they could, but I'm sure that there were some technical limitations.
There's always technical limitations. That's always Sony's excuse. There's always a technical limitation to something or another. You know, there's always an issue.
Because they don't have enough forethought. They don't.
Microsoft had technical limitations with backwards compatibility, and they got it to work.
But the PS3 was just so different, like architecture-wise and everything, that the investment to get it to work probably was much greater than it was for Microsoft.
Yeah, but people don't want to hear excuses.
It was the same with PS2. It's really tough to. That's why you had to have the hardware in the original PS3s to emulate PS2 games, because like PS3 couldn't just emulate a PS2 game because it was too tough, and now a PS4 can't just emulate a PS3 game because it's too tough because of the chips and the engines that they were running off of. And so, yeah, they should have been looking towards the future and saying
they screwed up.
Oh, backwards compatibility's been a thing since, you know, SNES and, you know, like the Sega had it and back then and all that. Like, it's always been a thing even since the 90s, and I just feel like it's dumb that they would just act like that they can just get away with doing this whole streaming thing and really kind of half-ass it. They need to have, I mean, they don't even have like all the first-party shit on PS Now. What the fuck is up with that?
Jared, you're definitely right. Right now it's a mess. It's a blunder, and it looks like they screwed up. But I think that there's still more coming.
The worst part is, like, right now, overall, PlayStation's winning the war, but they keep losing all of these little battles, and like little battles add up. Like, going forward, we see how much of a tiny increment the PS Neo is, right? The PS4 Neo. And what I said last week, I still believe, is like, why aren't they, by them not saying this is a competitor to the S, it's muddying the message. So, for instance, if we already knew this was a direct competitor to the S, and obviously they wouldn't directly say that, but, you know, they could get away with saying something close to that. If they were to say that this is a direct competitor to the S, then people already have in their back that, okay, well, Scorpio's Microsoft's thing. Let's wait to see what Sony's thing is. And though we know that they're probably working on something that's going to be more powerful than the Scorpio, the common audience doesn't know that. The common audience knows, oh, there's a new PlayStation thing that I saw that's rumored that I heard on a podcast. Is that supposed to be like, is it going to try to compete with the one coming out next year, or is it going to come out with the Xbox One? It's very confusing to the average audience, you know? And I think PlayStation is like, they're screwing the pooch. You can tell they haven't had a lead since PS2 because they don't know what to do with it.
Exactly. And, you know, I talked before on this show about how, why the hell hasn't Sony put the nail in the coffin with Xbox? They could have done it so many times this generation, and they just keep letting Xbox sneak up on them and get closer and closer and have these, like you said, win the little battles with backwards compatibility and you know, the way that they're handling Xbox Live over PSN. It's like, Sony, I think a lot of people are talking about, oh, Sony's just killing it this generation. They're just, you know, on fire, you know. I'm like, yeah, but I think a lot of this has to do with luck. I think that they wouldn't be in nearly as good a position if Xbox hadn't shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, Xbox lost this at launch. PlayStation didn't win it in my eyes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, PlayStation's like, okay, we're good. We're going to be here. The guy walks in. He's like, they're getting ready for the race. And, you know, Microsoft just pulls out a gun and shoots themselves in the foot. And Sony's like, and they just start jogging.
Guess
like,
I'll just walk, yeah.
Okay. But with PlayStation Now, I really think they should put this on the back burner, and they should focus on figuring out how to make backwards compatibility work. Like,
I don't think it's going to happen.
I understand that there's quote-unquote technical limitations, but people hate... It seems like for every problem that people have with PlayStation's like, oh, we can't do it. It's technically impossible. And people are like, well, they said it's technically impossible. And if Microsoft does it, they find a solution, or maybe they don't find a solution. They're like, oh, well, that's why Microsoft's losing, because they can't find a solution to any of their problems.
It's just a business decision, though. Like, it's just not worth... I mean, that's obviously not what the consumer wants to hear, but I totally get why that's the case. Same thing with why we can't change our PSN names. They can do it. It might just be a huge financial hurdle that wouldn't be worth the money. I'm sure they've done the formulas like 100 times of, if we charge people $10 to change their names, you know, we'll make back who knows? It could cost $10 million or something to make this possible. I don't know.
I don't know, dude. They could be making bank off of that.
It just seems like they are way too interested. Like, they just... Blessing said something that reigns so true to me, and I've been thinking about it for the last week, is like, after he watched Sony's conference, his PlayStation 4 was no different. He didn't expect anything different to happen to his PS4 after that conference.
I agree. That was an awesome point that he made.
After the Xbox conference, you already knew you were getting new controllers. You already knew that you already knew there was a new Xbox in play. There was two Xboxes in play. You already knew that there was new services coming. It's just like Sony's like, I don't know.
You'll get some games in 2 or 3 years. Here's Death Stranding for 2020. Yeah, I totally agree.
And like PlayStation Now just seems like another half-assed thing. Like it just seems like you really think if they, and this goes back to us thinking that maybe Microsoft lost this and Sony didn't win this generation. You go back and think if Sony really wanted to win this generation, they would have realized the problems they had with the PS3 and they would have made sure to fix those in the PS4. And though they did fix some of them, they would have fixed a lot of them if they really were in the place of trying to win. If you look at it, yeah, PS4 was slightly more powerful, but they didn't seem to do anything that made it be the console to own. You know, besides it being a little bit more powerful and Microsoft shooting themselves in the foot, they didn't.
They definitely didn't just go leaps and bounds ahead of Xbox.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing, and we get too focused on it. Our heads get wrapped around too much of this idea of it's a race and that someone's winning. When they might be competing, but it doesn't really matter to them as business people who wins, as long as you're financially solvent yourself and you're doing well yourself. Like. We've brought it up before about, Sony sold twice as many PS4s as Xbox Ones, but Microsoft's still selling Xbox Ones faster than they sold Xbox 360s. So they're doing great.
Yeah, but if you don't think they sit in the business room and are figuring out how to catch up to Sony, then you're wrong. That is the case.
Well, no, actually, I know. I mean, it's like a Six Sigma principle, which is like a business methodology. You don't want to compete with other competitors. Like you want to be the best you can be and do the best you can do. That might mean, trying to be better than them in certain areas, but you don't ever want to compare yourself to other companies. And we especially get wrapped up in it with Nintendo. When they're so far, like they're not even trying to compete with the other, they're doing their own thing.
We talked about how Sony didn't even win this generation. They got it won for them. They didn't even have to. And think about the fact that like last generation, it was 3 consoles competing. This generation, it's only Xbox and PlayStation. Like Wii U isn't even a thing that is competing against them.
And that's the strategic direction they wanted to go.
Not only did Xbox shoot themselves in the foot and let Sony win the race, there wasn't even the third competitor that there usually would be.
But and I understand that you're saying that they don't try to compete with each other, but going back to our last comment about loyalty, you have no loyalty necessarily to PlayStation. You look for what console is going to be better for you personally. So they are trying to get, when the new Xbox comes out, get you to buy an Xbox. Maybe not play your PS4 or not buy a PS4, but they definitely want you to buy an Xbox, So, like, I think it's not intended to compete, but they do, by proxy, compete with one another. It's just how it goes,
Before the show, Jared and I were talking about Kickstarters, and we were talking about how there's all these examples of Kickstarters where, they ask for this certain amount of money, they get way more than that amount of money, and then they still can't even deliver in the time period that they said they would, or, the game's not even close to what they said it would be. And what we were talking about is how, we as the consumer gave you the money that you asked for. We gave you maybe even more than you asked for, and you told us that it would be ready in this time and that this is the amount of money that you needed. So it's not our fault that you screwed that up and that you can't, figure your shit out. And it's the same thing with Sony, like, the whole like PSN name or like backwards compatibility. It's not our fucking job to figure out backwards compatibility for PS4. It's not our job to figure out how the engineers should be able to change our names on PSN. Like, that's your job, Sony, and I don't care if it costs you however many millions of dollars. Like, we buy a shit ton of games. We buy your consoles. That's where the loyalty comes in. There should be, just like we were talking about gamer loyalty, there should be loyalty coming from the first parties to us. There should be loyalty coming from the publishers and devs to us. They should say, hey, look, these people bought our fucking PlayStation. We're, selling these things like hotcakes. Maybe we could just get off our tails, maybe lose a little bit of money and please them with this, backwards compatibility or PSN name change. That's what Microsoft did with their backwards compatibility. They said, look, you guys, maybe they're not winning the console generation, but look, you guys came out and bought our consoles, bought our games. Now it's our turn to. Now it's time for us to return the favor.
So the numbers just drive everything, though. I mean, even without adding as many extra features and doing some of the extra things that Xbox is doing, PlayStation's still selling like crazy. You know,
and that's the problem.
Vote with your wallet.
Yeah,
if that's how you really feel.
And going to this though, the interesting thing is, maybe they couldn't, like you said, it's all a money issue. Maybe they couldn't afford to go through with backwards compatibility or the name change or whatever, because they ate so much money with PlayStation Now. The whole subject of this discussion, this topic, like,
nah, it's Sony. The company isn't in
billions of dollars
in general has plenty of money.
Yeah, billions of dollars for a company like this is nothing.
I'm not saying that they can't afford it. But going back to the point you literally just made of saying, people bought the console and we didn't even change anything. When they're looking at, they bought Gaikai, and that's not really working out. They're like, well, we spent money on this, and maybe it's not working, but we don't even need to put money into anything else because people are buying the console anyways.
Right.
It's like,
yeah, but that's what I'm saying is people are buying the console. You should hook them up a little bit. Like, it goes back to the whole CD Projekt Red thing. Like, the reason that they have so much clout with gamers at this point is because they gave you more than they needed to. And, talking about Sony at E3 with, like, the lack of any updates to PSN whatsoever, and Xbox is adding all this awesome stuff to Xbox Live, Microsoft doesn't have to do that. They're not going to make extra money off of the awesome shit that they just added to Xbox Live, but they're doing it because they know that these gamers are paying them their hard-earned cash for their consoles and games, and they are loyal to Xbox, especially if Xbox is saying, look, man, we're going to give you some more free features because we want to keep you guys around. Sony doesn't realize how good they have it, and they need to make sure that they start treating their customers better.
Well, it's because with the selling less, they will.
Yeah, with the next console, people might vote with their wallets and not buy a PlayStation. That's the issue. Is like the reason Xbox did this is because they want to sell more consoles, right? So like if we make something backwards compatibility, people start buying more Xbox Ones. PlayStation's looking at it and they're a business and they're like, well, we don't need to make those. People are saying they want those changes, but it's not stopping them from buying our console hand over fist. They don't care about good graces. They just care about selling, and they're selling without changing anything,
But they should care about good graces because it would help them out a lot. It seems to me like Sony, especially the PlayStation division, is just convinced that they're about to outsell PS2, and I think they have a long ways to go before that ever happens. Because PS2 had such a long tail, and the way that they're handling PS4, it's not going to be selling, 8 years after it released like PS2 was. So I think if they really want that PS2 experience that they had, they're going to have to do more for gamers to get on their better side, because Microsoft is winning that battle whether they're losing the console generation or not. Like, the fact that people talk so much shit about the PS Plus games that come out, and most people are more happy with games with gold, I think.
Yeah, for the most part.
They're like you said, PlayStation's okay with losing all these battles, and part of the battles that they're losing are ones with gamers and how they're treating gamers and how gamers, feel about that relationship with Sony. And I just think that, backwards compatibility, the added features to Xbox Live, the awesome customizable controllers, the new consoles that Xbox is bringing out, they're essentially buttering our balls, and they're making us happy. They're giving us what we want. And Sony is like, nah, dude, we don't really give a fuck. We're selling enough consoles. We don't have to update PSN. But Sony, it's like, come on.
Sony still knows how to sell consoles, though, because look what they did for the conference. They didn't care about indies. They didn't care about, multiple different genres of showing. They showed all of these exclusive games that are still 2.5 years away at the earliest, in my opinion. And all these people raved after their conference, Sony's winning, Sony this, Sony headline. So Sony's like, we killed it,
I don't know. I think that was more of a just initial reaction. And I think more people are starting to feel like how Blessing was last week on the show, where he's kind of like, I don't know, man, what did they really give me right now? Like, what am I excited for right now with PlayStation? I think they keep acting this way like they don't have anything to lose, and they're going to lose at some point. Even if they don't end up, in second place as far as consoles sold this generation. Like you said, they're losing these battles, and eventually gamers are going to come around and say, you know what? Sony's not doing us nearly as good as Xbox is.
So, to close out this topic, did you have anything else to say, Don?
Yeah, I guess the last thing would be that this isn't like Ricky Bobby would say, if you're not first, you're last. It's not even if you're not first, you're second, because it's not even the case here, because there is no second place. They don't like the console war and these little battles we talk about, like these are all abstractions. Like they're not real. Sony doesn't see that. They don't care. You know what I mean? They see the numbers. And that's what drives everything. So
Yeah.
Yeah, like Sony probably didn't. I mean, technically, Sony won last generation because the PlayStation 3 sold more globally than Xbox 360.
yeah, but what does that mean?
But even though most people think that that Xbox won last generation, Sony doesn't give a fuck because they sold the consoles that they wanted to sell.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Closing out on this topic, just really quick, for the next PlayStation iteration, whatever that is, if it's the PlayStation 5 or whatever it is, do you guys think that PlayStation Now will be a launch feature? Like they'll show, like when they unveil the console, they'll say PlayStation Now, yada yada yada. Do you think that'll be the case?
I don't know, man. That's what I'm saying is like they've got to start getting on gamers' good side, and I think, like Dom said, going forward in this digital age, if things aren't backwards compatible, it's going to be there's going to be issues because like they built this PlayStation 4 with the architecture of essentially a low-end PC so that it would be easy to develop for. And that should mean, in my opinion, that it's going to be easy to transfer over to the next console. So I don't think they should screw that up or that would be a big mistake.
So it'll be one of two things. They'll either completely scrap, PS Now, right, and just not fall for the sunk cost fallacy that, we spent so much on it, so we got to get something. Like they might just completely ditch it, sell it off, or do whatever.
Especially with the sales of the PS4, that helps them do that.
So. Right, and concurrently with that, they would, the PS5 would be backwards compatible, but then also the PS5 is now finally powerful enough to emulate PS3 games.
Yeah,
it can have backwards compatibility. So then, you know what I'm saying?
You're going to have one or the other. You won't have both.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Personally, I think the PlayStation Now is going to last guardian it. I think it's going to disappear and rock out here for a while. And then randomly we're going to be like, PlayStation Now, if it ever happens.
It's going to erupt.
Yeah.
And be like a volcano.
Really quick, before we head out, what we're going to be playing. I'm going to be playing a little bit more Shadow Complex. And then I don't know what else. I'm going to browse through all of my games. I have plenty of games that I haven't finished that are on my backlog, but I don't want to commit to something yet. I'll just scroll around and see what I decide to play, figure something out. But Shadow Complex is a definite one that I'm going to probably be playing this week. So, you guys?
Persona 3 crunch time is a go. So, get pumped, people, because we're about to see what's going down on episode 20, whether or not I can beat this game. Besides that, I'll probably be finishing up Walking Dead Season 1, maybe even move on to Season 2. But yeah, it's mostly going to be Persona this week.
Awesome. Dom, what about you?
So I'm going to keep on playing this Dragon's Dogma business.
I want to hear more about that. I can't wait to see what you think.
Yeah, I'll come back with a report, don't worry. And then I might grab Inside.
You need to
I'm
play
going to be playing that too, for sure.
Assassin's Creed also in the mail, didn't you say? So you might.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
I bought
Syndicate.
Yeah. So I might. Man, I got tough choices now. I'll let you know next time what I ended up playing, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening. As always, make sure to leave us a review and like us on iTunes. That really helps. Follow us on Twitter. That helps as well. We actually had a winner this week for the Blu-ray, so I think Dom handled that. So
yeah, we can tell you who it was.
In the meantime, thank you for the couple of subscribers we recently got on our YouTube. Really appreciate it. If you can share us, like we said, it helps us grow. Thank you guys for listening on a weekly basis. We really appreciate it.
I have got my Witcher 3 review going up on the next few days on the site.
Yeah, look for that on the site, and then the video form shortly thereafter on the YouTube channel. So
yes,
also return of Indie Hype. I got a couple episodes edited, so you should be seeing one this coming week. So
hype.
And the winner of the raffle is John Mitchell.
Ooh, John Mitchell.
At Mitch Johns 573. So,
whoop, whoop.
John, if you're listening, I'm going to ship that shit out to you. Tomorrow, probably.
Yeah. So
You're getting
congratulations
a bag
on
of
winning,
shit in the mail.
the Blu-ray plus digital copy of Force Awakens. Yeah, thank you guys for listening. As always, we'll catch you guys in episode 20, where we find out whether or not Jordan finishes Persona 3. Tune in next week on another exciting episode of Controlled Gamecast. Any closing words, guys? Those aren't words. Those aren't words.
That's not a word, Dom. But yeah, man. Hey, it's a great week for gaming. I am so excited to play games, and games are awesome. That's my final word.
Alrighty, guys. Catch you guys next time. Bye.